Do you ever feel as if you are hiding in the mists? I do. It seems to be my residence and my reality. And not only do I live there, but I feel that I'm actually a part of the mists. You know, like the mists, I can be ever-changing, shifting, altering my appearance and emotions moment to moment. I can be there one moment and then gone the next. I feel an affinity with the mists. I live in them and am a part of them. I am the mists. It's metaphorical, yes, but this is real life for me. It's my life in a crowd, my life in the world. I guess to make it more obviously relatable to some, I could use the word mirror instead of mists. I'm behind the mists or behind the mirror, and that's the same difference in my mind. And this is the INFJ Invisibility, which I see talked about everywhere. It's why I am invisible to most, why people can't see me. I've seen everywhere where it's been called a source of pain in the INFJ's life. And I believe it is a painful thing until you wake up to the beauty of who you truly are. You know, most of us are not awake. I think a majority of us are still asleep and we're still banging our heads against the same walls over and over again. You know, I see it in video after video, all lamenting the fact that no one sees us. We see everyone, so we wonder why it is that no one can see us. You know what I'm talking about. If you just go into a search engine and type in INFJ Invisibility, and you'll see what I mean. You know, I've done some research on this one. I've read countless comments. I've watched so many videos, and this is my perspective as an INFJ personality type. And I do believe that some of these insights cannot be given to us unless it's from someone else of our type with some solid experience in life, or from someone who has been intimately involved with one. You know, someone who can see us. And again, I'll get into that more in a little bit. But I just don't believe that most commentary goes far enough into our real world. And I don't think that it can, honestly. I think true understanding for us can only come from someone who is one of our type, or from someone who has been intimately involved with someone of our type. You know, someone who has studied us, someone who has seen us. I mean, the most powerful truths ever revealed to me about myself have come from those who have been able to see me for who I am. They questioned, they cared, they loved, and then my mind just took it from there and started putting all the pieces together. So instead of talking about the pain of our invisibility, I believe it's time that we define it and see it as a necessary thing in our lives. I think seeing this as truth is going to help you grow, and that's what I'm going to attempt to do here. I've referenced this before in a previous video, but I decided to really delve deep into it in this one. And just so I'm not misunderstood here, right now I'm speaking about our general interactions with those in our world, not the interactions with those closest to our hearts. I believe we are invisible because we have to be. I think the INFJ gift is to help others, and it's what we desire to do in life. And when I say help people, I'm not talking about going out there on a grand scale to change the world necessarily. I mean, of course, it's possible that you could do that. But what I'm really talking about here is helping people in your world, the people that you interact with day to day or even occasionally. Remember, changing the world around you is a good first step in changing the actual world. You know, I always think of the influence of a good parent. You know, how that can filter down through so many generations. But getting back to what I was saying, I believe the only way for us to help others is to be invisible. And I'm going to give you a real life example right now so you can see what this looks like. This just actually happened to me yesterday. so it's really fresh in my mind. I was conversing with somebody. I was working with some students in a musical context, and I was having a conversation with this person who also works with the same group of students, and I was kind of sharing some frustrations that some of these students weren't at, or didn't have the skill. They weren't at the skill level that they should be at this time in life. And, I know why that is, and it's a failure of the elementary music program in this specific case. So this person and I were talking about this very situation, and he said, before I even said any, I didn't share my thoughts, about what I thought the problem was. Right away, he said that it's a failure in the lower levels. And so I said right away, yes, exactly. You've called out the problem for what it is. And so I started asking him questions. Now, this man is an elementary music teacher in another place. So he wasn't associated with this directly. But anyway, so we were talking about it. And so I was asking him about his experience. And we were talking about accountability for teachers at that level. And I mean, I've already thought about this in great depth, but I didn't necessarily share that. I was more just kind of trying to pull out from him what his thoughts were. And obviously he has been thinking about this, but I could immediately read that he didn't have the confidence to really speak out about it, or that perhaps he had these thoughts, but he didn't feel encouraged or bold enough to maybe start to express his own thoughts on them. So I could see that immediately. So I started giving him confidence to speak about it. And again, I do these things without thinking, really. I mean, it just happens. It's like the reading is happening. And so I started questioning him, and I could tell as we went on, the conversation was getting more and more excited about it. He was talking about what he does in his classroom and all the ways that he has, he has benchmarks for his students, and by the end of certain grades that they're, reaching this particular benchmark, these standards. And it was a great conversation for him. And I really felt, I could just tell from his expressions, I was really helping him. I was giving him confidence. So I guess, so we had this conversation, and so it was probably maybe 15, 20 minutes later. I wasn't in the general area anymore, but he went over to someone that I know, and he just went into this whole thing about music education and accountability, and he was speaking very authoritatively to this person about his thoughts and opinions and everything that, what he was doing, and it was, this other person came to me and just said how it was coming out of nowhere, like, where did this come from this person all of a sudden? And just out of curiosity, I asked this other person, was I ever mentioned in the conversation? And of course the answer was no. This guy never once said my name, never gave me credit, for this newfound confidence and all these thoughts that he had. And of course, I just laughed, because this is exactly what the invisibility looked like. We had this great conversation, but it was like I wasn't a part of it, or I didn't exist or something. But yet it happened. It was real, So I want to encourage you to see this invisibility in a different light. Because had I been all up in my ego about this with this conversation, and if I had tried to force, what I did and what I knew about it, he wouldn't have walked away with all that confidence. He wouldn't have grown from it. I had to become invisible for him to see or recognize his knowledge and his strength in this area. So I want you to look at this invisibility in a different way. So instead of seeing it as a source of pain or something to complain about, we need to start seeing it as the source of our power. We can't help the majority of people in our life unless we are invisible. The mists, the mirror, it's our gift. It's not something to be sad about. It's something to be grateful for. And I've thought about this, and I think it's necessary not to be seen for the greater good. Think about that for a while. It's necessary not to be seen for the greater good. You know, how many years have you spent wondering why you never get back what you put in? How many years have you spent wondering why, when you try to truly be yourself, it's not seen or even acknowledged? It's wasted wondering. That's what it is. Stop expecting that you will get back and realize that you are invisible so you can help, and start to see the beauty in that. You see the beauty in what you have to offer the world by being invisible. And when it comes to real relationships, start looking for someone who can see you. One of the most powerful things ever said to me in conversation was with someone who was getting to know me well. We were talking about relationships, and it wasn't romantic relationships. We were talking about friends and family. And I mentioned being close to a certain person, but then I went on to explain that even though we were close, that person really didn't know me. And my friend looked at me and said, "Well then, I guess you and I define the term close very differently." It was like something slapped me in the face, like the light went on. Yes, why was I calling these people close when they weren't? It was a defining moment for me. These people, they weren't my close, intimate relationships. They were just people I was being called to help. And I could never see the difference until that moment. So many of us, we've relayed these experiences, how our friends don't understand us, or they don't hear us, or they don't ask about us. And we relay these experiences as what happens with people that we consider to be our friends. And I hate to break it to you, but they're not really friends. That's how I was banging my head against the wall for years. They weren't friends. They were just people I was helping. They were the people I was invisible to. They weren't friends, and they're not friends, not if they can't see you, not if they never allow you to contribute to the conversation or speak about yourself in any way, not if you are only ever helping them and they are never helping you, not if it's only one-sided, right? That's not a relationship of any kind. That's just you. It's a relationship as far as it's you helping someone else. Definitely one of our purposes in life, and it's a good thing, but we need to separate that helping, from what are our true relationships. In other words, our closest circle. It's time to stop thinking of these people as friends. And it's time to find people who can see you and who can be true friends. Where the helping is mutual and it goes both ways. I want to be seen. I want to be understood. Unfortunately, I don't believe most people can see me. And that's where the loneliness comes in. And this is why I believe we feel lonely. We're not lonely because we're invisible to all, but I think we're lonely because so few can see us, and because it's so difficult finding those few. That's definitely been my experience anyway. I'm sure there are reasons for this, and I guess the biggest reason, again, being because it's necessary not to be seen for the greater good. But it can be a lonely road, and there's no doubt about that. We're lonely, I think, because it's hard to find people who can see through the mists. They're out there, but the loneliness exists until we find them. And that doesn't mean you can't let people see you. I can let people see parts of me, and I will sometimes. Sometimes I'm initially interested in someone, and maybe they showed something in their character that piqued my interest, and I'm curious to know more. Letting them see a part or two of me is a test so that I can see what they will do with it. And I think this is a wise way to handle things, not giving someone carte blanche access to you. And then I can assess, where to go from there based on the other person's response. And in other cases, it could be a situation where I have determined to love someone no matter what. And again, just to be clear, this isn't a situation where you love someone who treats you terribly. That's not what I mean at all. You should not be in relationships like that. You should never be a doormat. I'm talking about, maybe like people in your family. Just, for example. There are some instances where I have made the decision to love someone. So from time to time, I have to let that person see sides of me because it's impossible not to. But the difference here is that I have to let them see for a certain reason. So I let them see parts of me that are necessary for understanding in a specific situation, but no more than I need to show. And in showing bits of myself to them, my expectations are kept realistic when I do so. I can't expect full understanding from them. In some cases, they are incapable of it. And most of the time, I don't really even desire it with this person. I have just seen it necessary to be in their lives for whatever reason. But in a relationship where you desire true intimacy, if you have to keep explaining and showing who you are to somebody, you are doing all the work for that person. You aren't doing it together. And in some cases, it's not even motivated by the other person. So as a result, it's not as ultimately satisfying as someone who can see who you are kind of right off the bat. You can have relationships with people that you have to continually show yourself to, but I don't believe they'll ever be that deep. We desire people in our lives for our deepest relationships who show us that they can see us. And I believe that's where our deepest relationships can be found. I know who can see me, and I know it almost immediately. And that is what true comfort is for me, being seen. I look at myself, I've thought about this analogy, but I look at myself as the little kid playing hide and seek, with the other little kids. I'm hiding someplace and my arms or my legs or maybe my head is sticking out, and yet the other little kids can't find me. They can't see me. I'm right in front of their face and they miss me completely. But then an adult comes into the room and immediately their eyes rest on me. And they can see me, they can see the parts of me that are sticking out. And if they call me on it, I'm shocked. What? You can see me? I thought I was hiding. Because truly I thought I was, just like that little kid thinks that nobody can see him or her. And to be found, to be seen is startling, to be honest, because it rarely happens. But when it does, I immediately have a profound respect for that person just because they can see me. It's kind of like the kid to the adult. I look up to that person as someone who has done something not many other people have done. It connects me to them instantly in a powerful way. It's like that person has a superpower no one else possesses. So going back to the mists, the fog. Remember how I said I lived in it and even identified with it as being a part of me? I spend a lot of time there, and I must in order to do what I'm meant to do in this world. But did you know that there are patterns to fog, to the mists? That it can be studied, it can be observed, it can be categorized in some ways? There are actually patterns in the mists. And not only that, but the mist can be influenced as to how they move. So what seems mysterious can actually be understood. But it takes a very special person. And those people are like the sun to us. The sun shines into the mists and it disrupts it, influences it, if you will. The sun pierces the mists, getting through to the depths, the ground, using my analogy. It warms the ground and it warms the air all around it, changing the humidity levels until the mists dissipate completely. Then everything can be seen in the light. It's an absolutely beautiful thing. It truly is. So don't lament your invisibility. Instead, see it for the beautiful gift it is, and be visible to the ones who can see you.